before the lords of Europe decided that breathing required a permit, the sky belonged to everyone. It hung above the fields like a tattered blue blanket, indifferent to rank, wealth, or how many boots you owned. Peasants looked up and saw clouds. Nobles looked up and saw opportunity. It began, as all great injustices do, with a yawn. One misty dawn in the year 1173, Lord Edric of Black Mirror, man of velvet doublets, zero agricultural knowledge, and the emotional range of a damp turnip, stepped onto his balcony and stretched. The air was crisp. Somewhere, a bird sang with reckless optimism. Lord Edric frowned. "Too much joy," he muttered. His steward, Godfrey, who hadn't smiled since the great turnip blight of '59, shuffled forward. "My lord, the sky," Edric said, gesturing broadly. "It's free." Godfrey blinked. "It is, my lord. That's the problem." And just like that, the sky was no longer free. By noon, a scribe had been roused from his ale-induced stupor to draft the Edict of Atmospheric Tenancy. By dusk, it was nailed to the village gate. The proclamation was simple. All air within the visible horizon now belongs to Lord Edric. Peasants wishing to inhale must register for an aerial consumption license. Unauthorized respiration would be punished by fines, public shaming, or, for repeat offenders, forced pantomime of wind instruments. The village erupted not in rebellion, that would be foolish, but in a quiet, simmering fury. Old Marta, who hadn't taken a full breath in years, whispered to her son, "So now we pay to not suffocate. Next, he'll charge us for blinking." She was half right. Within the week, Lord Edric announced the ocular levy. "If your eyes move," the bailiff declared, "you are consuming visual stimuli. And visual stimuli are part of the Lord's domain." Children were fined for watching sparrows. Lovers were cited for gazing longingly. One man was dragged to the manor for excessive squinting in the direction of the sun, which the Lord deemed a form of solar theft. But the sky was only the beginning. Having privatized the air, Edric turned his attention to something even more audacious: silence. "You hear that?" he asked Godfrey one evening, as crickets chirped in the fields. "Crickets, my lord. Exactly, noise. And noise implies the absence of something more valuable. Quiet, and quiet," he said, his eyes gleaming, "is mine." Thus, the quiet tax was born. If you wished to sit in peaceful contemplation, you had to pay for a tranquility voucher. Meditating without a permit, that was spiritual trespassing. Praying in silence, unlicensed reverence. Whispering a lullaby to your child, domestic hushwork, and, subject to a 12% fee, peasants began communicating in grunts. Mothers rocked their babies in soundproofed corners made of hay bales. Even the cows learned to chew cud with their mouths closed. But resistance, as always, found a way. Old Thomas the miller started a rumor. The Lord doesn't own the night sky. It was technically true. The edict only covered visible atmospheric space during daylight hours. No one had thought to claim the stars. So, under cover of darkness, the villagers gathered in the meadow. No torches, no words, just breath-deep, silent, and defiant. They stared up at the constellations, feeling, for the first time in months, something like freedom. It lasted 3 nights. On the 4th, Lord Edric rode in at midnight, flanked by guards. "You think I forgot about the stars?" he sneered, unfurling a new scroll. "The Celestial Revenue Act is now in effect. All stargazing requires a license. Unauthorized wonder is a Class 3 offense." Thomas was fined so heavily he had to sell his millstones. Still, something had shifted. As the villagers trudged back to their cottages, they whispered something new. "What if we just stopped paying?" It was a dangerous thought, treasonous even. But dangerous thoughts, once planted, are hard to uproot. Back in Blackmere, a young girl named Ella Ray Barefoot, sharped and utterly fed up, did something no one had dared. She climbed the hill at dawn, stood on the highest rock, and took the deepest, loudest breath she could manage. "I breathe for free," she shouted to the wind. The guards came running. Lord Edric himself appeared in his nightgown. But Elara just grinned, exhaled dramatically, and said, "Sorry, my lord." That breath was paid for. In hope, and hope, she paused, her eyes gleaming, is still free. For a moment, the entire village held its breath. Then someone chuckled. Then another. Soon, the hillside echoed with laughter, real, unlicensed, untaxable laughter. Lord Edric turned purple. This is insurrection, sedition, excessive mirth. But even his guards were smiling, because in that moment, something broke not the law, but the illusion that a man could own the sky, the air, the stars, or the human soul. Of course, the fines came. Elara was banned from hills for life, which in flat Blackmere meant she couldn't stand on anything higher than a dung heap. But the seed was planted. Centuries later, when kings became CEOs and tolls became convenience fees, people would still tell the story of the girl who challenged the taxed sky. And every time someone refuses to pay for something that should be free clean water, open roads, human dignity, they echo that defiant inhale on the hill, because you can charge for everything, until someone decides not to pay. And then, the whole rotten system starts to wheeze. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more. See you next time.